Hello,
Hi everyone, I'm Karen.
and I'm May, and we are from
Boomers to Gen Z.
Today, I'm going to be talking to Karen and trying to fish from her about risk taking. I think that risks are different from every phases of our lives, so we're going to get the juice from someone who's lived through a few phases
Few centuries.
to see how risks
Decades.
change,
Yeah.
what is worth taking and what is worth avoiding. So don't go away. So, Karen,
Yes.
what was the first risk that you took that you really remember? It could be a risk of the heart, it could be a risk by moving countries, it could be a risk with a friend, with work, anything. Something that felt risky, but you were like, okay.
Um. I suppose the I can think of is a financial risk.
Okay.
Doing business. When and a lot of business risks that I took. Some were based on situations whereby I may not know everything about that industry, but I still went ahead and did it and kind of learn as I go. And then others would be trusting a partner, a business partner, with a lot of money to do certain business and that kind of thing. So those are, I would say, more calculated risk.
Mm.
Um, and on a personal level, um, I think the most prominent one that keeps coming to my head is when I agreed to let my daughter study abroad at only 16. So um, it was, to me, it's a huge risk because she was only 16. I was obviously very concerned about her well-being, her emotional being, and things like that. And but it was a promise because she worked really hard to get a scholarship, and then when her request from us was that if she gets that scholarship, can she go? And I couldn't turn back on my words. So when she did get it, and she went, in some ways I was very heartbroken because I was not prepared to let her go, but at the same time I had to honor my word to her. And so it took a lot of effort on my part, especially with my husband, to make sure that she knows that she's loved. She knows that whatever happens, family is here. We will be here to help her and support her and all that. Because 16 is
Yeah.
a very vulnerable age, and you, as a parent, you worry whether they'll mix with the wrong crowd, or and then they're on their own devices and whatnot. So those are a bit scary. But at the same time, I'm really lucky and I'm blessed that she turns out okay and she's all right. But many a times I worry whether I've done the right thing.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And it's like something that it's like one of those risks that you would not be able to live yourself with if it goes wrong because it was like in your hands, right?
Yeah.
So like that's not like a calculated risk so much. That's like a leap of faith.
A leap of faith, yes, somewhat, yeah.
So there's two types of risk that you mentioned then. So a calculated risk and the leap of faith types. And I think that like for my generation, I think that the risks that we take, um, it also reflects on our emotional capacity to like regulate ourselves, if that makes sense. So like I feel like people with a higher risk taking appetite
Right.
know how to like regulate their emotions, and then those who kind of play it safe and kind of like bolster people, which would have been what a mother of a 16-year-old girl would have done, right? If they were not able to regulate their emotions or feel strong or trust the other person, they would kind of control the situation and be like an umbrella parent.
Yeah, a helicopter
Helicopter parent. So I think it's also about like identifying those things. And for me, the biggest risk that I tend to face, well, I took a big risk already, but we've talked about that risk a lot. So in another chapter, I think the biggest risk that I face is actually a financial one. So it's more of like, okay, so I earn now, but if I want to scale up, I probably need to invest and grow the team. But then if I invest and grow the team, what if like
It doesn't
clients
work out.
pull no, what if like clients drop and then the money bowl is little and then it doesn't cover my expenses? So when I get into all of these details, obviously there's ways around it, right? There's solutions like, oh, you can get contracts with your clients, you can, and all of these type of things, but it's still a risk.
Yeah.
And both ways you don't win. So it's not really a calculated risk because it's like it's a leap of faith, I think, more than anything.
Right.
And because of the way that I grew up, I really struggled taking that risk. It's been 4 years. I've been talking about the same thing, about expanding the company. I only just did it last week.
Well,
and I'm scared.
it is scary, and it should be. When you take risks, you should feel an element of fear and your possible loss and things like that. But you should use that fear to get my French, your ST together and make sure that it works for you. You should use the fear to your advantage and say, I'm not going to let this happen, therefore I'm going to do whatever it takes, especially in terms of business, because business is very unpredictable. And if you think about the most successful people in business, like Elon Musk, who had nothing, but he had an idea
Yeah.
and he believed in it so much about the electrical vehicle, and now he's obviously one of the richest men in the world. But it didn't happen overnight, and it is something that he believed in himself and his idea. So the question I have for you is, how much do you believe in yourself, and how much you believe in that you are able to deliver? Are you willing to do what it takes to get what you want? That's the question. Because in business is, you will have pitfall, you will have smacks around, and we talked about this in some episodes about how people give up. Remember, we talked about that the first stage of uh, uh, um, unrealistic optimism. Remember, and we talk about later on, you find that all the challenges comes in and you feel like, I'm not going to do this, and that's why a lot of business people fail, because they give up. But instead of just giving up, perhaps they should have looked at what they can improve with, whether it's the people, the process, or the whole whether it's the person who's doing the job is not good enough, that you need to change that person or rehire a new person, or the process that maybe you missed out on certain things, and that's all a learning curve. And because you're young, you can take that challenge. Yeah, because I think when we get older, we time is not to our advantage. So there's a saying in the business world is, fail fast and fail early.
I've heard this. I've read it somewhere.
Yeah, you need to fail fast and fail early, so that then you know what's going to work and what doesn't work. So I'm also new to e-commerce and the business that I'm in now, and but because I'm just trying every possible avenue and see what works and what doesn't. So I am burning cash. I am learning which one works, which doesn't work. Hopefully, I can find that little that
Synergy.
rainbow, final rainbow that will take me to the next level. But it is painful, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's also about like how much are you able to risk? What is too risky? How do you calculate that? How do you know? How do you dive into something without cutting your own throat.
Maybe I share a story about um, have you heard of the Colonel Sanders story?
No.
Okay, so Colonel Sanders, his recipe KFC, for those who doesn't know, he created this recipe that he made. It was a family recipe, and he was in his 60s when he took this recipe, and he went to um, like door to door to all the little cafes and say, I'll give you this recipe, but for every chicken you sell, I'm going to take, I think, a cent or 10 cent from it or whatever. And people will laugh at him and say, oh, you silly old man, and what are you going to do? Now, he wasn't a rich man. He's in his 60s. He was in his 60s. And after doing that, right, he he only one particular shop decided to work with him, and that's after knocking on. It was believed and documented that he knocked on about close to 1,000 doors before he got a chance. So same when you think about Thomas Edison, his invention of light, the number of times, and he created this the light bulb after how many thousands and thousands of failure. And his motto was, oh, okay, I failed this time because I didn't put this wire and that wire together. Okay, so that was eliminated. And then that was why I said we keep failing. We only fail if we don't learn from it. But if we learn from that experience or that process, and we say, oh, okay, now we know, then it's not a failure.
Okay.
So, and there are many stories like this where business people who had, like, down to the wire, they have nothing left. They mortgage their home. They got $10 left in their wallet, and turn it around still because they truly believed in it. So the risk is there, but it's how much you believe and how much you're willing to truly sacrifice for your belief in the business.
I think I've also heard another quote. We're very quotesy today, but
Yes.
if you don't believe in it, like, how will anyone else? Nobody else will.
Exactly.
So yeah, as you were talking, like, I was just getting some ideas in my mind, and like I've been doing content marketing for quite a while. I actually started when I was like 16 years old, just as a freelance thing I was doing from home. I definitely have learned a lot, but there's definitely a lot more I need to learn. So what I realized is that when I was a younger person freelancing, there was more leeway.
Right.
There was more leeway, there was more understanding, there was more guidance in the tasks. As I got older now, I think I need to understand that as much as I might be younger, I am not that young anymore. And there is a different sense of maturity towards the work that is actually required from me and is expected. And I'm no longer like this young girl doing it. I'm actually a normal working adult age.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's the transition. I was like, so why has it been so different and difficult lately? I was like, because the excuses, and like, it just doesn't make sense anymore.
No, it doesn't. And in the business world, emotions doesn't come into play.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, um, yeah. Business is business, and it cannot mix with emotional being, and that's why even like companies will say, oh, no love triangles in no love relationship in a company, because it does meddle with emotional things when you make a decision or taking leave and all this type of things, right? So yeah, and it's really about wanting the risk is it's so powerful, because if you in your mind you think it's a risk, but are you willing to think about, if you take that risk, what is the end goal.
Yeah.
If everything worked out, what would have been that end goal? So um, it's like focus on that end goal. The journey will come, but the focus on that end goal.
And I think it's also like a switch. I think my generation, we have this thing called the hustle culture. And the hustle culture means take everything now, only think about now, which makes it really hard for us to actually have long term planning. Like stick to something, grow something, nurture it. Instead, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of like taking every odd job or like taking every little opportunity, like yeah. And then at the end, you realize that you don't have something that's substantially grown to actually take care of you. Because when all of these projects stop circulating, then what?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very different in my generation. We tend to just work one job, compared to your generation, because of AI, because the pace of the work environment is so intense. I do notice that more and more young people have to take multiple jobs to make it work. So in that sense, it's quite sad, because there's, unless you know how to balance, it is very hard to have a work life balance. I understand that, but at the same time, if you allow and able to get all your hustles in line and have it in a um, not a vertical, but in a horizontal, sorry, a vertical manner, meaning your main job actually extends to your hustles and is all in the same line, then it could be quite beneficial, because then you will have multiple streams of income.
Yeah, I agree on that. I think moving forward though, like I need to recenter it. I need to recenter it in a sense where like how do I segregate my time, and do I chase the quick buck though and like neglect the consistency?
Yeah.
It's like you really need to know how to balance these things. Like Karen said, like creating a funnel in your head that everything interlinks so that you don't feel like you're stretching yourself into different
Correct.
compartments.
Yeah.
But also not like just like, oh, there's something new and shiny.
I think yeah, you're not the only one. I do too. We all get through that, but it's really true. Uh, that's why I talk about the process, and that you really have to put down in paper what is the best process for you and what you can do. And again, I always say it's the world that we live in, where everything has to be so fast, and therefore you guys growing up in this generation, you want things so fast, and you want the money fast, you want everything fast, and not willing to be patient and wait it out.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to work on as well as a person. So, saying that, it has been very risky for all of us to do this channel, and we're going to be taking a break, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And I hope that you'll leave us some comments, tell us what you like, what you don't like, or what you want to see more. Do comment and let us know, and tell us maybe what are the risks that you are willing to take for your personal or your business or your career life. Until then, see you very soon, and please remember, this is just all for fun. Okay, bye bye.